We're ready to get started on our Chrysler 300M, and there's a lot of differences between this and the Toyota we just finished. Well, first off, this is a V6 engine instead of the 4-cylinder engine. But let's take a look at the engine on this. This has the spark plugs on the top, a lot like our Toyota was, but if you notice, there's no spark plug wires on this engine. That's because it has what's called coil on plug, so each cylinder has its own separate coil. On our Toyota, all the spark plug wires went over to a coil pack. What we need to do in order to access the spark plugs on this, so we want to remove the coil unit, and how you do that is you just unplug it. It has 2 torque screws that come out, the unit comes up, and the spark plug's below it. The very first thing we need to do, though, is disconnect the battery. Now, in our Chrysler 300M, the battery is actually in the fender well, but we have a negative access point right here where the negative cable connects to. We can disconnect the negative cable right here. Let's go ahead and do that. Move our cable out of the way so it can't touch. There we are. We're ready to get started. The first thing we want to do is go ahead and remove the coil unit, and then we'll remove the spark plug. And there we have it. That's the coil unit right there. Something else too, unlike our spark plug wires, this is not a normal maintenance item. The only time you'd replace this is if you would have a problem with it. Let's go ahead and remove the spark plug. And there's our spark plug. Let's compare this to our new replacement spark plugs. The spark plugs that were in the car, these are not platinum spark plugs. These are just standard spark plugs. Now we're going to go ahead and put platinums in this. The one thing to keep in mind though is if your vehicle calls for platinum plugs, you need to go back in with platinum plugs. This will be something the professionals at AutoZone can help you with. Our replacement plug compared to the plug we removed, as you can see, they're the exact same length. The threads are the same. What we want to do, though, is we want to check the gap on this. And this is a single electrode plug. It is platinum tipped, and we want to check the gap. The nice feature about this vehicle is the plug gap spec is actually underneath the hood label, and I'm looking right at this, and it's 50 thousandths. Most plugs come preset, but like, for example, on this one here, it's preset at 35 thousandths. That's not wide enough. It needs to be 50 thousandths, so we need to open the gap. To open the gap, we can put the plug in the center hole of our gap gauge and basically twist it, and it'll open it. Let's try it again. There we are. And as you can see right now, I've got it gapped at 50 thousandths. The next thing we want to do before we put it in the vehicle is we want to put anti-seize on the threads. And here again, you don't want to get it on the electrode, just on the threads. And there we have it. The spark plug socket is specially designed to hold the plug centered within the socket. You don't want to use just a deep well socket to install the plugs because whenever you go to tighten or loosen a plug, there's a good chance you could crack the porcelain. And again, we want to torque them to specification. Now we're ready to reinstall the coil unit. Now there's a couple things we need to talk about before we put this back into place. This is a good time to do a visual inspection of the coil unit. What we want to look for is the boot that's attached to the coil unit, make sure there's no rips or burn marks in it. And secondly, you want to check the coil to make sure that the coil housing itself isn't cracked. Okay, ours is in really good shape. Lastly, two things we want to do. We want to put anti-seize compound on the fasteners on these torque screws that hold it in place. And we also want to put some spark plug lubricant in our plug boot. and it's ready to be reinstalled. Press down until you hear and feel a click. And there we are. We repeat the same procedure on the other 5 cylinders. As with any job, to do it right, you'll need the right tools. The nice thing is that jobs today don't require a large, expensive assortment. Basic hand tools are generally all you'll need. In case where a specialty tool is required, be sure to check with AutoZone's Loan a Tool program. They have many specialty tools that can help you complete your job quicker and easier. Besides a ratchet set, you'll need a spark plug socket that fits the plugs on your car, usually either a 5/8 or 13/16 inch. And you'll need a spark plug gapping tool to make sure the plugs have the right gap. Some swivel sockets, extensions of various lengths, and T-handles can be handy for replacing those hard-to-get-to plugs. You'll need a shop manual for your specific vehicle. A plug wire removal tool can also be helpful.
Be cautious when working under the hood. If the engine has been running, components will be extremely hot, so be careful what you touch. When working around a running engine, it is important to be alert and never wear loose clothing or a necktie that can get tangled in belts, pulleys, or the fan. When lifting a vehicle, never work under it until it has been secured with wheel blocks and securely positioned on jack stands. A hydraulic jack alone is never enough.
AutoZone. Get the entire DVD for this repair and all other procedures covered in the Complete Car Care series at your local AutoZone store.